In this module, we'll take a quick look at what Azure is as a platform. So we talked about cloud computing in general. Let's take a specific look at what Azure is as a cloud platform. Now, the whole notion behind Azure is, this is Microsoft's implementation of a cloud, and it's built around what Microsoft feels their customers need based on surveys they've done, based on research they've done. So the first thing to kind of bear in mind when we think about Azure is that Azure is a hybrid cloud. It's not a solution that is designed to be only up in the cloud, only up in Azure. It's designed to supplement what you already have in your existing investments in both infrastructure and application development. So some basic things you can do with Azure. You can create customized dashboards. For example, here's my Azure subscription. I like to keep mine really, really simple. I've got a dashboard that shows me the health of everything I've got deployed, and then what I'm charging and what I'm being billed per month. That's what I want to look at when I quickly log on to Azure. And so, as an administrator, you can build these dashboards that give you a really quick look at, what's the current state of health of both Azure and also the applications and services that I happen to care about. You can create virtual machines. For example, I can create both Windows and Linux virtual machines. Microsoft embraces Linux as a platform for applications, and it's kind of a, from someone that's been in the industry a long time, it's kind of a new position for them that Microsoft's fully embracing Linux. So you can create both Windows and Linux virtual machines through this notion of a marketplace. And we'll talk about what the marketplace is and how it works in a little while. So through that marketplace, you can deploy hundreds of different virtual machines, some containing just basic operating systems, others containing full application stacks. For example, there's a LAMP stack virtual machine that contains Apache PHP. There's virtual machines that contain Oracle. There's virtual machines that contain SAP. There's virtual machines that contain appliances such as firewalls, network scanners, intrusion detection systems. So there's a lot of options and a lot of different virtual machines that you can pick and choose. Prior to this, you'd have to go to the vendor, buy the software, build it and install it yourself. Now with Azure, in just a click or two, you can deploy something. Have a look at this as a quick example. If I simply go new, I'm now in the marketplace, and if I look at virtual machines, you can see there's a pretty elaborate list just showing me the most popular ones. For example, here's a SQL Server virtual machine that will install both Windows and SQL Server ready to go. And if you've ever installed SQL Server, it's not something you do over a cup of coffee. You've got to think about it. You've got to wait for it to run. This, with one click, type a few answers, you've now got a running copy of SQL Server. You can deploy web and mobile apps. So apps that are specifically designed to run on phones and integrate into various stores. And you can also create managed databases. I've dealt with over the years many administrators where, the only thing they wanted was a database. And for me to give them a database, I've got to set up a copy of Windows, I've got to patch it, I've got to get it on the network, I've got to secure it. Then I've got to go install SQL Server, patch it, configure it. So the expertise required by me to, is pretty large. I've got to be a Windows administrator, I've got to be a database administrator. So they can have, a database for some simple application or some, low use case. With Azure, I can simply create a database in Azure. I don't need any knowledge of how to install, configure, or manage SQL Server. I can simply create a database, and the database as a service means that Microsoft on the back end is going to make sure that that database is on a healthy, reliable, backed up, and performing well server. And that's just a snapshot. There's a lot more in Azure that you can leverage. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of different things. The marketplace, as we mentioned, is where you find that. And so as examples of some of the things you can find in the marketplace, data and analytics options, security and identity, infrastructure. I can create networks, I can create firewalls, I can create rules, I can create massive storage and cheap storage, create containers, machine learning. So I can leverage the knowledge of Azure and the expertise of Azure and the compute power of Azure to perform very deep data analysis and machine learning, and also media streaming. I can capture, record video, and distribute and stream video to many, many subscribers all at the same time, all through Azure. So it literally is a platform that contains everything you need to do virtually every business function that you can think of. Some other examples of resources that are not necessarily, things you deploy on Azure. The marketplace. Anyone can build a solution for the Azure marketplace. So if you're a company and you have a product, you can sell that product through the Azure marketplace. You simply need to build it, you apply, it gets certified, it gets tested and checked and so on, and it's added to the marketplace. We have the VM Depot, which is a community-driven library of virtual machines. We have GitHub. Microsoft is heavily invested in GitHub, both for documentation, APIs, and sharing, and as well for the distribution of what we call ARM templates. And we're going to leverage GitHub a couple of times throughout these courses so you can see how it's used. And then finally, the Azure Trust Center, which is a lot of guidance around, as you move to the cloud, one of the biggest concerns companies have is, hey, my data was in my data center, it was behind a lock and key. It's on the cloud now, how do I know it's secure? How do I know it's trusted? And it's guidance, policy, compliance rules that help you both implement it correctly and understand what's been done so that you can know that your data is safe and secure while it's stored in the cloud.